Welcome to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on what it takes to successfully start an enterprise, to grow it, to maybe eventually exit it. Today, I'm talking with Ryan Berman. He is the founder of Courageous, which is a consultancy that has a bunch of courage brands underneath it. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's a good start.
A good start.
We're off to a good start.
Okay, well, good. You can correct me. So we'll start out there. So tell me a little bit about Courageous. Let's talk about that first and then get into why you put it together.
Sure. Yeah, Courageous. I mean, to me, I describe Courageous as a special forces consultancy. And now more than ever, I think many businesses are stuck and they're sort of in iterative mode at best or preservation mode. So Courageous is that special nudge you need to liberate the business model, forward. And what we're doing really is we're just coming into teams and looking at what the fears are of the business and helping them first identify the fears, address the fears versus suppress the fears so they can actually make calculated decisions for their business to move the business forward.
Nice. So we'll have a good conversation because I do both kind of operational and marketing work. And I present my team as sort of the A team. Like we come in, we solve the problem, and then we leave, we get rid of the bad guys and then we move on. And thinking about, what that looks like, I call them profitable, but not progressing. So you're profitable, but you're just not progressing. So, so as you look at this, tell me about your background. Like, why did you decide to get into this work?
Yeah. And by the way, I think we should have that conversation about how aligned we really are, because I think as a we're completely virtual. I just think being in this business for 20 years, you run into people that know what they're doing,
right,
which is the special forces side. And I think many agencies, I come out of ad agency land. So I was in New York City for 8 years. And then I moved to San Diego to write screenplays, not live one. And it's been absurd since 2004. I never meant to be a business owner. It just sort of fell in my lap. And then, like many other entrepreneurs, had to figure it out. There wasn't a business plan. It was literally brain, client, phone. I think we can do that. And then, here we are 15 years later, basically. I founded 2 agencies, Fish Tank Brand Advertising, merged that with a social media and PR firm in 2012 called IDEA. You can call us Idea, which I still own a stake in. But 2 years ago, I started looking at the idea of courage. And very much like emotional intelligence, it was sort of shunned aside at the workplace.
Yeah.
Until, EI, though, once Harvard started writing about it, it was taken seriously. So I'm hoping the same thing can happen with courage, where I've seen it in the workplace. It's been a core value, but really not activated.
So talk more about that, because, I use the example of happy. Like everybody says they want to be happy, but my definition of happy and your definition of happy may be wildly different. So when you talk about courage not being so activated, but maybe part of one of the core ideas for a company, is it that people don't know how to do it, that they are afraid of it, that's not been defined? Like where does that fall?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I think we confuse calculated courage with careless courage.
Okay. Yeah.
So many CEOs don't like the word courage because they replace it with impulsive or lacking strategy.
Yeah.
And back in 2015, when I started writing my book, which is coming out soon, called Return on Courage, the first 3 months of the assignment, I'm like, is there anything here? And I kind of went back to my first partners and was like, no. And I think I've just wasted $30,000 in time because nobody liked the word. And as I kept going, I realized, 52% of the Fortune 500 since 2000 are extinct. You're going to have 9,000 brands that sort of carousel onto the Fortune 500 over the next 6 decades. You got John Chambers, the outgoing CEO of Cisco, predicting that 40% of all companies are going to be dead in a decade. That was 3 years ago. But yet no one's really putting a plan in place to be proactive.
Right.
To me, that was like, oh, wow, I wonder if you could operationalize courage. Could you teach it?
Interesting.
I thought, and you said it perfectly. If you don't know how to do it, you certainly can't do it. It's like self-defense. You think you know what to do in a fight, and then the old Mike Tyson quote, right? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the nose. So in some ways, it's just trying to help companies sort of think through what could take them down and do something about it before it's too late.
And so going through that process, is it kind of a typical consultancy approach where you're identifying gaps in their ability to execute courage, or do you have what does that look like?
Yeah, so I guess this is also a good way I mean, I've been a compensated observationalist for 20 years, and what I'm best at is hearing what's not being said.
Right.
And so the book itself was 2.5 years of just interviewing bullish business leaders like the president of Domino's Pizza, Russell Weiner, who took the hell. I mean, he wouldn't take the credit for it, of course, but he was there to take the stock price from $2.40 to over $200, and he did it with the exact same team, by the way. Or Jack Williams from Royal Caribbean, who was part of the team that built the cruise ships. They called it Category 1. They're trying to make it Category 1. And by the way, now if you go on a cruise ship and you go skydiving or ice skating or Cirque du Soleil, it's because of Jack's team building that experience. There was no plan B. Like, that had to work for them to liberate their business model forward. So people like that from Amazon and Uber, and just started to study what these companies had that maybe some of the other companies that we didn't love as much didn't have.
Yeah.
And then I interviewed extreme doses of courage, like astronauts and Navy SEALs and firefighters and even ER operators. Like, how do you take these 22 alpha dogs or women, whoever's in the operating room, and who knows what's coming through the door, and what's the process look like for that? So just extremely courageous moments, and how they skill and process and training come together. The third B, by the way, we're bookmakers, because I've never written a book before. So how do you do that?
Right.
So I just, I read voraciously and interviewed a ton of people that had done that. And then this was sort of my aha moment. I went to television radio school. I mean, I really didn't know much about the way we were wired. And then I started to talk to Cambridge PhDs or immunologists or clinical psychologists that study specific types of patients. And the aha moment for me was, oh, wow, we all have this thing called our central nervous system. If you break that down, at the core of you is a system designed for your nervous tick.
Right.
And we haven't really thought about this thing since we had to take a test in high school, maybe. So the idea is, well, okay, can I come up with a methodology or a process that actually builds your central courage system to combat your central nervous system? And well, if you could do that, that would be a massive competitive advantage, because if 95% of the population is stuck in freeze or flight, and you're part of the 5% that knows how to fight, okay, or another way to say it, if you're in a room with 100 people and 95 people are stuck and you're part of the 5 that aren't, well, that's a massive competitive advantage for you. So that was sort of the beginning of it. And from there, I say building your central courage system comes at a price. And PRICE is my acronym. It's the 5 steps. It's prioritize, rally, identify, commit, and execute. And, we had an hour, I would go through each letter. And this is the basis of the book and what I also call the courage training. But very similar to you, Eric, I think it's broken down into operationalized. It's the operations. It's the organizational health side mixed with the courageous business side. So without alignment, good luck.
Yeah, well, and the structure and the operations piece of it gives you more permission for the courage, which seems weird, right? Like, people think, to be courageous, things have to be flying down the train track and they're falling off. And it's like, no, actually, if you know you've systemized and you've operationalized and things are clean, it makes it so much easier for you to step in and say, okay, now we're going to do something a little wild, because we've at least got the frame and the infrastructure in place to do it.
Yeah, again, I just think it's almost impossible to scale without clarity and alignment. And it's sort of a sad reality as a creative guy that's been on the front line. Like, I'll figure out the problem, no problem, to realize just the importance of, if you don't have that alignment, everybody's second guessing, and then you don't have commitment. And then if you don't have commitment, you've got a splintered organization, and it just takes the organization down the wrong way. And some of the buzzwords of today, obviously, they very much play on, like, finding your authentic purpose and making sure everybody's on board with what that purpose is. What is the why? And if you're going to scale, I've always said you can't just know your why. You have to have a rally cry on your why, because otherwise people aren't going to stick around to see if you're going to be successful or not.
Yeah, and the definition of why, because my book came out the same year Simon Sinek kind of hit the market.
Yeah,
My book was all about why, but my why is different, right? So there's the why the business exists, but also the motivational why behind why your customers buy from you, why people work for you, which can be very different from the organizational why, and understanding how those relate to each other and what the mix is. So very interesting. So we can't do them all, but the P. So P stands for what again on your price?
Yeah. So I'll take you through the first two steps are organizational health steps. So the P is prioritize through values.
Okay.
So what I'm seeing is that many companies, they honor the legacy of the company, so they don't modernize the values, or they have just too many values. I don't think we can't just remember 16 values. So like, let's make choices.
Right.
Just to put this in perspective, courageous, we have 5 core values and they're prioritized. And the number 1 is sacrifice. Okay. Very close to the word prioritize, by the way, but sacrifice recognizes you may not get to everything. So you have to make choices. What are you going to sacrifice?
Yeah.
And so to me, prioritize through values for a company, it's what's the 3 to 5 core values max? What's the number 1 core value? Have you actually decided what the number 1 filter is for the company? And then the good news is there's a values arrow, assuming they're authentic and you're living them out, that goes directly from that value all the way through the people you hire to the product you put out into the marketplace. So the number 1 thing is prioritize through values. The R is rally believers. So once you know yourself, it's who's on the team, who's part of the squad. I kind of have a big gripe to pick with the word leadership. I think poor leaders turn leadership into cheerleadership, and they start rah-rahing to their staff, and they may win over the bottom 20% with the BS, but the top 20% are kind of like smart enough to figure out the rah-rah BS. And if you lose them, you're going to lose the organization. So I like the word believership. I think the believership, the only goal of the believership is to make believers in all directions. And the key test is you even make believers or fake believers. And unfortunately, fake believers don't wear a T-shirt that says fake believer. They just, they nod and smile. Nod and smile, collect a paycheck, and go on with their day and just roll their eyes. So
yeah, and so that's such an important thing, like that whole kind of being the preacher, the person, the prophet, the one telling everybody, getting them behind it. Like that's an important part of it. So we're going to go to a commercial break. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done under Courageous. So I know that you've got the Courage brands. So we're going to talk about one of those and where that came from. One that's close to my heart. If you ever watch anything on Instagram or know anything about me, you're going to know this is a brand close to my heart because this is something I like myself. So back in just a second, we're talking with Brian Berman. He's the founder of Courageous. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Back in just a second.
So I'm here with Eric Holtzclaw, founder and CEO of Laddering Works. Eric, tell us about Laddering Works.
So Laddering Works is a company that helps other businesses in one of 2 ways.
Okay.
So your company is either growing and you're not exactly sure how to keep up. So you need to scale operations, maybe raise some money, those kind of things.
So growing too fast.
Growing too fast. Okay. Growing too fast. You got kind of structural, you walk in every day, there's a fire. You've been doing it longer than 3 years or 1,000 days, and you still feel like you can't step away from the business and take a vacation. So we help companies on that side. So sort of operational support, looking at their financing, seeing if there's a way that we can help them, get to the next level. Or you're a company that's not doing any marketing at all. So you are maybe stalled. Your business has gotten to a certain level. You make a certain amount of money every year, but you've never gotten above that. And we come in and build marketing structure. So both of them are operational at the end of the day. It's about creating a process and a way to approach it that's strategic. It's that owners don't often know how to do both of those. So they're really good at sales, which means they may need operational structure because they're out signing more customers than they know what to do with. Or they've built a beautiful product that's the best kept secret. And so they need somebody to come in and help them market that product. And so that's the kind of businesses we look for. We come in as a stopgap and we work with a company for somewhere around 12 to 18 months typically. solve those problems for them and leave them better than we found them. And we're back. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey. We're talking today with Ryan Berman. He is the founder of Courageous, which is a consulting agency. Is that a good way to put it? Or consulting agency. And underneath that, or part of it, you have Courage Brands. And one of those brands is called Sock Problems.
That's correct.
And you make funky socks. And I wear funky socks every day.
Wheelhouse. This
every
is
day.
Wheelhouse for you.
Yeah, wheelhouse. I got way too many funky socks, actually. I've got like this whole box of them. I think it takes me longer to pick my socks every day than anything else. So let's talk a little bit about sock problems. Where did that come from? What's the kind of the concept behind it? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to describe sock problems is we're turning sock into a verb. It just happens to be socking problems in the world with cause-centered socks. And each sock in our line socks a different world problem or affliction or issue. So you can imagine right now there are all sorts of problems, and we're actually in development right now on a sock gun violence sock, what I call our she quality sock for women's rights, and there's a couple others that are in the works. But this is an idea I've had for 5 years, and just to go back to courage, when I was writing the book, the definition I came up with for courage that people could actually use in their everyday life was knowledge plus faith plus action. And it needed to be all three. So if it's knowledge and faith with no action, that's paralysis. Or faith and action with no knowledge is reckless, which is what my mother thinks courage is. So she's like, that's courageous. That's stupid. And then knowledge and action without faith, if you don't feel that thing on the inside, you're working on status quo.
Yeah.
And sock problems is this idea I've had for 5 years and was taking no action on. And so here I am going through the process of writing this book about courage, and I'm not being courageous myself, and realized about 1.5 years ago that I need to start to put a plan in place to bring it to life. And so we launched in November. We're 3 founders, shared values, but we each bring a breadth of experience. So I'm on the story side. I have one partner that's made products his whole career and another partner that understands conversion and digital marketing. And so far, so good. So far, so, it's a harmonious little partnership where we're literally just trying to do our part. And at the highest level, the purpose is obviously the name of the company. How cool would it be if we actually did sock a problem and take a problem down? But on the micro level, what we've learned even already is that we're just a vehicle to help people express how they feel about a specific issue. One of the lines I love that's on the site is take a stand and socks that stand with you. And that's how we feel.
You should spend time on the site because the site has all kind. You guys have done a really good job with kind of the creative puns and things like that.
Yeah, I can't help myself. Maybe that's 20 years in the business will do. But I do adore the fact that I can take everything that I think I've learned from so many people in marketing and pump it into the brand and pump it into the product. And look, our designs on purpose are very light and fun, playful. These are heavy topics that we're dealing with, but we want to be a beacon of positivity. We want to bring people together. Lots of people march in our socks. We want to make sure that we're bringing those communities together, not reminding them of the negative side of the issues.
Yeah, and the thing that I like, because people don't really wear ties as much. Like ties is the occasional thing, but if you have to go straight laced, if you have to be kind of boring, or if that's what you typically do, the socks is something that kind of helps you stand out. It's the thing and it bonds. I notice too when you see somebody else and they're wearing funky socks, it's one of the things that you kind of talk about, right? It's like, nice socks, guy, and whatever. So I like that. Yeah,
and it depends on who you are too. Like if you're in the workforce, then it's you get to decide who you share your creativity with. You get to, if you want to show your sock, and then. But for lots of people that are really passionate about this topic, our tagline is care, wear, share. So obviously, if you care about one of the topics, we of course want you to wear and then be part of our story and share it forward. Well, how do you share it forward? Social media, texting it to somebody that you love, wearing shorts. I am wearing a lot more shorts these days than I ever thought I would be wearing, but for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Here's the one of our socks. You can sort of see the packaging. There's no retail. It's all at sockproms.com. And what we're looking at here is our sock, cancer sock. The actual name of the sock is Mega Ribbon, which is probably not surprising because it's got lots of ribbons on it.
Oh, nice.
And the money goes back to Alex's Lemonade. So what's kind of nice about our model is that it's a bit more targeted than most of the give one get ones.
Yeah.
Here we're actually writing checks. It's actual cash back to the partners. And on every purchase, we're giving 25% of our revenue back to the charity partners. So when you buy our sock cancer sock, and there's your sort of social media moment right there.
I love that.
And each sock is designed, just like this. On the bottom of the sock has your whatever we're socking message, and then in the card you can sort of see our lovable little icons. And now that you care, please wear and share, and here's where your money's going. So
very nice, and that's such a great way for you to kind of continue to flow with your creative piece, and you own it.
Yeah.
It's not something you have to answer to any customer around. That's what I like about the stuff that you do for yourself, because you have a lot more control over what you do with it.
Well, I think there's something to it. After spending a career being sort of 2 degrees away from the customer, now I'm, good or bad, I'm on the front line with the actual customer, and I like the fact that I can have a conversation with them. I like the fact that they're trying to make us better too. Here's our sock, autism sock. Just give you one more. It's called Puzzle Piece.
Yeah.
PEACE. So.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Yeah, I had a company about the time that they came out with that as their symbol, and our symbol was a puzzle piece, and it confused the whole world. We had to change it. But
did I send you socks?
Yeah, I've got the Movember ones.
Okay.
Yeah, the blue. Yeah. The baller. Yeah.
The ballers.
Yeah. Well, what's fun too, if you talk about like a lot of the thought leadership stuff that I do, like most of my customers are not on social media, they're not networking, they're the people who become my customers, but we use my brand as an experimentation. So like I try stuff for myself, and if it works for me, then it's a way I can apply it to the rest of my customers. And I don't have to ask anybody's permission to go try something crazy or different. So yeah. So
I also think that word is about like experiment it is the word. It is even with companies like who are just afraid to fail. And look, I get it. Nobody's in business to fail, but like give your team permission to try things. And the only way to really liberate the business model forward is to experiment, in my opinion.
Well, and talking about that, I run into companies who are starting new brands, and they started inside the company walls, and you got to spit that thing out, let it have its own legs. That you'll kill it. You will kill it if it stays there. That's the biggest mistake you can make, is to keep it if you want it to be something separate and new. So for Courage Brands, is there other stuff on the horizon? Are you thinking about other ideas? Anything?
Yeah, we actually just launched our second Courage brand, which is, and again, literally, like when I say just launched, I'm saying maybe 2 days ago, and it's called Robin Hood Brands. Although that brand name is sort of the ingredient brand version, but it's factory to consumer brands that are sold solely on Amazon. And what we realized is that the meddling middle was just taking up all of these points that were unnecessary, and who was really getting robbed but the consumers. So we're trying to strip out all the middle and give that value back to the people. And because our partners are direct at the factories, we're able to actually make high quality products and then not sort of pass those prices, those high prices to the customer.
Okay, very nice.
So we're literally launching with Body Good is one of our brands. It's a training and wellness and fitness brand that just launched on Amazon 2 days ago. Again, it's called Body Good. And we're launching Burly Bear, which is more of an outdoor brand. And who knows the great outdoors like a Burly Bear, right? Nobody knows the great outdoors like that. So those are our first two on that platform. And I would consider that a Courage brand too, because the idea of again, bringing the value, returning the value back to the people is the idea.
Very nice. So future, when the book is not out, is about to be out. So what does the future look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the book has now been done for about 6 months, and the methodology is going to be very hard to knock me off the methodology. But what's in the works right now is an online platform that actually helps companies operationalize courage. And to me, I think it was critical to figure out a way to scale the concept. And I think the more people that we can help, the better. So that's in the works right now. And once that's finally up and running, then we'll launch the book and have them work together.
Very nice. Yeah. And that's the thing. You have to have something as part of the book. Like that's a secret that a lot of people don't know. You got to have something kind of in conjunction, specifically if you're teaching something meaty, like something they've got to be able to take action on and do something.
Honestly, this is what lights me up. Like I am absurdly passionate about helping people like actually figure out a way to get unstuck. And so I feel really good about what the future looks like, but it's never fast enough. You're always like, let's go, buddy. But I've got my hands full. I mean, between sock problems and now Robinhood, there's plenty going on, but I like it that way. I'd prefer it that way.
Yeah, there's some of us who are that way. We like to have way too much going on. So, well, thanks so much for joining me. It's been great talking with you, and I wish you the greatest of luck with it.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So we've been talking today with Ryan Berman. He's the founder of Courageous and also has the Courage brands, one of those being Sock Problems. And you need to go check their website out because they have some really fun copywriting material from Ryan's past. Sock Problems, make sure you go get them. You've been listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw, and we'll bring you another story next week.